and I would prefer it if it had like shown a space where they wouldn't be able to put in parking. But now they can put it anywhere. They could pave the whole thing.
Yeah, I don't think they're gonna pave the whole thing, but.
Oh, they probably won't, but it's just, they get the best of both worlds with this covenant. Who wrote it? Their attorney?
I don't know. I would assume the law department must have had something to do with it.
Yeah, I think that was all the product of the reuse process.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm on the reuse committee, and I don't remember dealing with that, but maybe Barney would remember.
What is it?
Did the law department write the covenant for the rezoning item?
Likely they did. Yeah, I think Andrew Lee, joining us, wrote it.
I'll wait to make my comments when it opens.
Sure.
What this list of names? What is this big list of names? I couldn't figure out what that was all about.
Those
lot
are
of
the
them have been
individuals that have been notified.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the notification list? Okay. Does it say that? Oh, a butters list. It does say that. Reading that, Melissa.
Was that?
Where are you reading about the?
In the covenant. It's in the you have to go to the other communications,
Okay.
planning memos. It's the top one, 376-23.
Yeah.
Hey everybody,
Hi.
and just in the nick of time, should we get right to it so that we can move on to the next meeting?
Let's, yes.
It's a busy night. So tonight is the last meeting of this term, December 11th, 2023. It is a regularly scheduled meeting. I'm Deb Crossley, chair of the committee, councilor at large for I'm joined at the meeting by Vice Chair Lynn Tanner, at-large Article 6, Holly Ryan, Councilor 8, President Albright, Councilor for 2, at-large Allison Leary, at-large for Ward 1, Pam White, at-large for Ward 3, Lyle Baker, Ward Councilor Ward 7, and I am aware that Joshua was unable to join us this evening. Also, I should join Director of Planning, and also from the Planning Department, Joe Iadenisi. Thank you. And Andrew Lee is here, Attorney Andrew Lee from the Law Department. So we are beginning with a public hearing.
Councilor Crossley,
Yes.
the planning board is also here this evening as a
You're-
joint meeting. Yep.
All right, thank you. Tonight is a joint meeting with the planning board, and let's see, I don't see.
Kelly Brown is here.
Is he? Okay, I'm not seeing.
Madam
him.
Chair, thank you.
Thank you. Would you please introduce your committee?
I will. Peter Doringer, Kevin McCormick, Lee Breckenridge, and Barney Heath, I think are our lineup tonight. So thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So we are beginning our evening with a public hearing on 376-23, a petition to rezone a lot on Dedham Street, which we discussed at our last meeting, reminding ourselves that this was city property that was agreed during the reuse process some time ago to be surplused. The council agreed and agreed based on a condition that it be rezoned to single residence 1. And there would be certain restrictions placed upon the use of the land. So the petitioner is Catherine Adams. And I think I will leave it at that. And Ms. Adams, would you like to say anything before we open the public hearing?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a brief presentation, which I'm happy to give. It's similar to the presentation I gave last time.
Terrific. Could folks just sort of raise their hands if you're here to speak to this item as part of the public hearing?
I should introduce the co-petitioners, Nima Chakralahi and Sophia Valina.
Okay, I see at least one person raising their hand. So please go ahead. If we can keep it fairly succinct, that would be great, because certainly the committee has heard this, but for the members of the public, please say what needs to be said.
Yep, you got it. I did want to point out at the outset that the City of Newton is a co-petitioner in this matter. And I have, by way of orientation, a slide showing the location of the two properties. 197 Countryside Road, outlined in green, is where the co-petitioners reside. That parcel is approximately 25,000 square feet. And then 0 Dedham Ave, or 0 Dedham Street, otherwise known as off Dedham Street, is outlined in blue. And that's about 16,000 square feet. Both properties abut the Charles River Country Club. The site was the former site of the municipal water tower, declared surplus in 2020, as the chair noted. Co-petitioners were advised as when they received notice from the city, and they indicated at a hearing in March 2021 that they would be interested in purchasing the property. The site has no frontage and is non-conforming as to lot size, so development of the parcel would not be possible, which is how we got to the issue of a development restriction, which you mentioned. The Real Property Reuse Committee authorized the sale of the site only for use as open space and resolved that a permanent development restriction be placed on the site. In 2022, the co-petitioners put a bid on the property. I have a slide showing the reuse order here. They put a bid on the property and negotiated a purchase and sale agreement this year. One element of that purchase and sale agreement is a contingency that a successful change of zone is affected by this committee, and the City of Newton agreed to act as a co-petitioner on this matter. We submitted a proposed restrictive covenant for review as part of this process. That covenant would be in effect for perpetuity or for 99 years if the court finds that's necessary. That covenant would allow the land to be used for customary recreational and open space uses in yards for single family houses. These permitted uses would include a pool or a tennis court. However, construction of buildings of any sort, including garages or sheds, would not be allowed. The reason for this change of zone is to enable the co-petitioners to create a single large lot. In the short term, their plans are to clear any broken trees and overgrown brush and beautify the lot. And in the intermediate term, they could incorporate the parcel into a recreational amenity as I've just described. They don't have any other long-term plans at this time. So that concludes our presentation. I just wanted to give a brief overview, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Adams, and thank you for your brevity. The council has discussed this already in committee. Councilor Leary, though, you have a question?
Well, I just wanted to remark on the declaration of restrictive covenants that I understand that Ms. Adams has just described it. But it seems to me that Section A of the covenant, which she described about, the land would be used for customary recreational and open space uses. But then Section B also says that pools, tennis courts, and parking can go in there, which I think are incompatible with wildlife habitats, which they describe in Section A. So I was wondering if in theory, they could put parking in in a large part of that parcel. And there doesn't seem to be any like defined area of where they could put the parking, and keep the other green space available for yards, gardening, wildlife habitat, things like that. That's the only thing that struck me. And that there's a lot of mature trees there, and I'm wondering if those are if a significant number of those are going to be removed or not.
I see Andrew Lee raising his hand. I think we did discuss this in committee, but it's good to bring it up.
Well, I remember bringing it up, but I wasn't really satisfied with the answer.
No, I'm happy to bring it up in this public forum.
Yeah.
Attorney Lee?
Madam Chair, I can't answer every part of that. I do just want to note that I was present at all of the discussions and reuse, and the particular uses with regards to, recreational activities such as pools, tennis courts, and including parking. Those were actually explicitly discussed during the reuse meetings. I just wanted to make that note.
Okay, thank you. I think you also told us very clearly last time, tell me if I'm wrong, that this is not a conservation restriction. It is.
It certainly isn't.
Yeah, no, it's intended as an open space restriction.
Yeah.
So the property was sold or is sold to the abutter with this understanding. Is that correct?
That's correct, and it is intended to be sold. Right now, there's an agreement to purchase the property from the city by the abutter. The city currently still owns the property.
Understand. Okay.
All I'm saying is I would have been happier if there was a little bit more specificity regarding to the open space, where the green space and wildlife habitat would be untouched, if that was the intent. And I'm not going to make a stink about it this late in the process. I'm just noting it.
Okay. Any other comments from the committee? If not, I would like to open the public hearing. I will open the public hearing. If you would like to speak, please raise your electronic hand. You can do that by going to the bottom of your screen and clicking on raise hand. And if you can't figure out how to do that, if we can see you and you want to wildly raise your hand on the screen, I will see you that way. I see Stephen Wohlberg. Please come forward if you could state your name and address and speak for approximately 3 minutes. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you very much. My name is Stephen Wohlberg. I live at 435 Dedham Street. That's part of the Gables community. I'm on the board of trustees and on the legal committee of the Gables. The questions that I had really related to the rationale behind the rezoning, generally whether or not keeping its current zoning would still, how come the open space could not still be utilized as such with the current zoning as public utility or the like? What's the necessity for the rezoning? And I guess the same concern that was raised earlier on, which is whether or not the open space and the restrictive covenants are couched in such language to prevent such structures, parking structures, things that are going to minimize the current trees and landscape on the property. So I've not yet seen that, but those were concerns generally expressed by people within the community that directly abut the site.
So I wonder if Mr. Lee, I don't see any other hands raised. Basically, the agreement had been to rezone this to be consistent with the zoning in that neighborhood, in which case the city would be able to sell this property to the abutter with the same zoning restrictions that apply to all residential lots. Mr. Lee, is there anything else you'd like to add on that before we go on? I see several more hands up. I see Andrew Lee, could you go first, and I'll go to Director Heath.
Sure, Madam Chair. So, I'm not the one asking for it to be rezoned, but the purpose for it to be rezoned is so that it can be combined with a lot that abuts it. Basically, the only lot that can provide any access to it. With regards to the restriction, as you noted, Madam Chair, this is not a conservation restriction. There's not a requirement that it be kept in its natural state. That wasn't what was required in the reuse committee during their discussion as well. And they specifically had that discussion. What is clear is that if it is to be purchased by the abutter, it will be held by its private property. It's not public property anymore. It's not something that members of the public can just walk on, do what they want with. It's going to be held in private ownership, and it's going to be utilized as part of their yard. And that's what the open space restriction would allow. The open space restriction, what it prohibits is very clear, which is buildings. You can't have any buildings on there or a portion of a building. So that's in a nutshell what the proposed restriction in compliance with the reuse board order would do.
Thank you. Director Heath, I see you took your hand down.
Yeah. So just briefly, I want to indicate, along with Deputy Solicitor Lee, that there was extensive conversation with the abutters during the reuse process and the reuse committee. I believe Councilor Danberg might have been the chair at the time, about the potential reuse for the property. Then it was subsequently bid for anybody who was interested, including abutters or somebody else. The adjacent property owner obviously had a considerable interest since he had been living with the vacant water tower in this land next to them. And I think an important consideration is the city indicated it didn't want this property anymore. That's why it made it available. So
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you. And for any members of the public who may not know, it was city property housing this rather large water tower, which we didn't need anymore. And so that has now been taken down, thus making the land available. I'm going to continue with the public hearing. Is that all right, Councilor Danberg? Okay. Mr. Chanowski, I believe you're next.
Thank you. I was 5 minutes late. I'm not sure if this was gone over. If it was, please interrupt me and I will ask the second question that I have. Can someone go over the history of how this bid and purchase took place? And was that gone over?
Well, it's the essence of this was reviewed. I'll tell you in a nutshell, this process went forward a long time ago. Again, the city had a water tower on this property, didn't need the water tower any longer, took the water tower down, went through a lengthy process of proposing that the property be surplused because no other departments wanted it either. And the city council determined that it should be surplused and that there should be certain restrictions put upon the land to make it and that it should be zoned. What we're doing now.
I recall on that. I just was interested in the bidding, and I'm saying this selfishly because I've talked to everybody on the street. Not a single homeowner was made aware through any notice of this property, and the address was certainly a tricky one at 0 Dedham Street. We don't know how 0 Dedham Street came about. But everybody here feels quite left out of this process.
Okay, Director Heath, I wonder if you can address this, but I believe during the reuse, or I'm going to ask Councilor Danberg, because she chaired the reuse process back then, and I believe abutters were notified throughout that process. Councilor Danberg?
Yes, abutters were notified, and I would remind everyone of a couple of things, and that is that anyone who is not an abutter would have to trespass on someone else's property in order to get to this location. When we surplus pieces of land like this, the people that we appeal to in general are the abutters, especially in a case where you cannot get to the land without trespassing on other private property. The other comment that I would make is in answer to the first person's question. I don't remember what his name is already, about why the need to change the zoning. And one of the goals of the city in surplusing these pieces of of land, and some of them are very small and rarely are they this large, is to get them on the tax rolls. And if we do not put them in the hands of private ownership, they cannot be taxed.
Can I go back to my question? And that is, how was this advertised? How was the bidding done? You say that this
There's no
happened
bidding.
during the reuse committee?
There's-
And who is an abutter? Who's considered an abutter? What are the city rules regarding an abutter?
If you share a property line, you are an abutter.
So there was one
particular-
abutter in this particular
this
property, is
par-
that right?
This particular property is landlocked. The only way to get to it is through the owner's property who wishes to access the property as part of their yard. We think, I mean, I guess that's not settled.
So are you saying that the city has no obligation to notify anybody else on Countryside Road?
Director Heath, were abutters to abutters notified as well?
I don't know if Mr. Lee has the exact nature of the bid and who was notified. I can say that there were multiple meetings at reuse, and a lot of the neighbors on the street were part of that conversation. So, and the
Is this the reuse?
intent
meeting
of the
from 2 years
reuse
ago?
committee,
Just a
excuse
minute,
me.
please let
The,
Mr.
the
Heath
intent of
finish.
the reuse committee all along was to get to this, and they made a decision and said the property would be offered. So I find it hard to believe that folks didn't know that the property was going to be available for sale. I don't know if Andrew has any specific information about the length of the period that the bid was open, the bids that were received, et cetera. But, and again, I think it bears repeating what Councilor Denberg said. The property has no value except for the abutters, because there's no other use that could be possibly entertained, because there's no other access.
It has
I
no
believe
frontage.
I believe one of the other abutters was a golf course.
That's correct, and the Gables
Yes.
as well.
Yes.
Mr. Lee, did you want to add anything? Otherwise, I'm going to keep going.
I don't know how much I can add, Madam Chair, but I just want to clarify one thing because there seems to be some confusion. The reuse process was the process at the reuse committee whereby the city council made the determination to make the land available for sale. Subsequent to that is a bid process. Pursuant to state law, we have to go through these public bidding processes for when we're disposing of city property, including real property. The abutters were notified because we do that with every situation with a property that's being sold. And by abutters, we're talking about properties that literally share a boundary line with the property that's to be sold. The purchasing department is the one that handled the RFB, the request for bids. So I don't know the specifics. I know that they followed all of the requirements under Chapter 30B, which is the state law that mandates how these properties are bid out. But beyond that, I can't say exactly what was done. I'd have to consult with the chief procurement officer.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's see. I'd like to continue with the public hearing, but President Albright, you have your hand up. No, can I wait? Okay. The next person I see is Joseph Link. Would you like to unmute and speak?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Oh, good. Mr. Lee, to speak to that, actually, you don't know because you weren't in charge of it. What was the process of disposing of the property, meaning advertising or anything else that you have to qualify under to do this?
Are you asking me what I just said? I'd have to talk to someone else to figure out the answer about.
Does anybody else know here tonight?
The chief procurement officer is not attending this meeting.
I'm sorry. I think I interjected there. Mr. Lee, what did you just say?
I said the chief procurement officer is not attending this meeting.
Right.
And I reiterate another question that was brought up was, and this is legal, I guess. Do you have to rezone the land in order for somebody else to bring it into the fold of their own house? Or can it stay as open space, which is, if you look back at the hearing, we talked about open space and conservation.
I'd
Okay,
like
go
to
ahead.
speak to that. As I said before, you may not have heard my comment. One of the city's goals in disposing of any lot of land is to bring it into the tax rolls. And if it is not in private hands, it is not taxable. We want the property to be taxable.
No, I understand, and that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I'm just curious about the process.
So I think, I'm not sure if you all understand, there's only 3 abutters to this property. It is landlocked. You can't access it from any public way. There's the Gables, they didn't want it. The golf course, they didn't want it. And one private residence who's interested in purchasing it. Open space owned by the city as a public park requires the city to maintain it, and it's a landlocked tiny parcel. So the city didn't want it any longer.
Then let me refine that question. Can you sell it to the abutter and leave it open space and still collect a tax?
No,
Again, it is open space. It is required to be open space. You're not allowed to put a structure on it, but you may put a tennis court or a pool or additional parking area on it. Those are the requirements. And those requirements were satisfactory to the abutter as useful to their property.
So as far as the disposal process went, I would like to call that person. What was the name of the person in charge of doing whatever they had to do?
Who runs the purchasing department?
Nick Reed.
That'd be Nick Reed.
Nick Reed.
So as Deputy Solicitor indicated, I'm sure Nick follows all the regulations. This is, this is so surprising because we've had these conversations at the reuse committee, well attended by the abutters. The neighbor expressed interest in the property. I'd have to go back and take a look at the minutes of the meeting, but it was clear the intent of the reuse committee and the property owner to submit a bid for the property.
Yes, I believe you're right.
I'd love to move on here. May
Go right
I?
ahead.
All
Yes.
right, thank you. I see
take
one
it
more
down.
hand, Mr. Silk, Steve Silk.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I know we're kind of going back and forth. I think the main point, as Director Heath just kind of mentioned, we were on the last Zoom meeting, which was a while back, regarding what we're going to potentially do with the property. But I think the point that Mr. Chanowski and Mr. Lank were trying to say is you ended up having a bidding process that no one was aware of other than the Charles River Golf Course and the people that ultimately are maybe having a plan to purchase the property. No other neighbors, because you're not direct abutters, were made aware of the price. So how of the bidding process. So I don't know how it's potentially called notices put out, because it's basically a non-competitive bidding process if there's only one person bidding on it. So how do you know if the property could be used for a pool or a tennis court or something like that, not any kind of a structure? Any of the surrounding neighbors, me being one of them, could have purchased the property for a pool or a tennis court or something like that if that were so
You could
desired.
have-
But I guess more of the point is
you
there was
cannot
just
get
no.
onto the property.
You
I'm
can't-
sorry.
Yeah,
You
I'm sorry.
cannot get onto the property unless you trespass on someone else's land. The city used to have an easement for the purposes of maintaining the tower. As soon as the tower came down, the easement went away. And so there is no easement onto that property at all, and no way to get onto it unless you were one of the 3 abutters. So it would not do a neighbor any good, really, to own a piece of property that they cannot get onto
That's true.
legally.
That's true.
I mean,
So
there
there's
are
no
3 abutters, by the
there's
way.
no frontage at all on the
No,
Correct.
there's no
countryside
frontage
with
at all. Correct,
Correct.
yes.
And there's 3 abutters, just to be clear. Gables is also an abutter who were not
Yeah, yeah.
interested.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I guess as long as, so the final point of the whole thing is the stipulation though, is that the only thing that can be done on that property is basically it enhances the property because they've got more square footage, but you can't put any kind of a structure, just, so I guess a pool or a tennis court is not considered a structure. You mean like a building type structure can't be put on there. So
Correct.
fair enough.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I see no other members of the public with their hands raised. I'll go to President Albright.
So I see that Ms. Adams would like to speak before you close the, I'm going to
I
make a
don't see-
motion to
okay.
close the public hearing, so call on Ms. Adams first.
I will. Ms. Adams?
Thank you. I was madly waving my hand because Alan was having no luck getting your attention.
I don't see any hands up from you guys, but okay.
I
Please
don't,
go
we
ahead.
have to do a practice on the raise hand button, Alan. Oh, and also unmuting yourself,
Alan,
Alan.
you're muted. You're muted. We can't hear you.
All right, does that work?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I was just going to comment, I'm looking at the public bidding document, which there was an invitation for bid in accordance with the city's processes. It was RFP number 23-06, dated September 15, 2022, put out by the City of Newton Purchasing Department, and it was published in whatever publication, I guess the Globe they use. So I can see the material was sent out the way they always do it when they qualifications for the bidders and everything else.
Okay, thank you for that. President Albright, is that all you wanted to say?
I wanted to say, I'm glad that I think all of the issues were cleared up for the abutters that, well, there's only one abutter that's purchasing and the other abutters weren't interested and the other people are nearby, live nearby. And I think that all of the issues were cleared up and I'd like to move that we close the public hearing and I'd like to move approval after we do that.
All right, we have a motion to close the public hearing. Councilor Leary, do you want to speak to the motion to close the public
No,
hearing?
I
Okay,
wanted to comment after.
okay. All those in favor on zoning and planning, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Planning board, would you like to do the same thing?
Sure. Can I get a motion to close the hearing?
I move we close the public hearing.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Barney, are you in this one or not?
I'm abstaining.
Okay,
Thank you.
very good. Thanks. We're all set.
Okay, thank you so much. Councilor Leary.
I just wanted to clarify with Attorney Schlesinger that in the covenant, it says that you can't put any structures up. Is that correct?
Yes.
So Attorney Schlesinger, you might remember that I learned a few years back that a play structure is considered a structure. I learned that from my experience with 93 Bellevue Street. So I just wanted to mention that.
We did we're aware of it and refined the definition of a structure in that document.
Yes,
So
I would
that-
note that there's an exclusion for recreational structures.
I just wanted to make sure that you had that because I just remembered that's seared into my brain about that experience with that.
Yeah,
Okay,
had
thank you for
similar-
that. Thank you for that
Councilor Leary.
clarification.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Baker. You're muted. There you go.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think that, I hope it's been clarified, but I want to make sure everyone's observing this, is that there's no one who has access or any ability to use this property but the neighboring petitioner who's involved in the matter. And so that's, I think, clear. And whether it's a slide, I want to just make sure that's accurate, right? I think you
Yes.
said that before. Okay.
Okay, all right. Then I think I will go back to President Albright, who I think wanted to make the motion. Unless, well, this is in Ward 8. Should we?
Counselor Ryan is you're welcome to it.
Okay. I make a motion to vote on 376-23
To approve.
to approve.
All right, thank you very much. We have a motion before us in zoning and planning to approve the rezoning. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Mr. Brown, would you like to do the same?
Yes, can I get a motion to approve this rezoning from public to SR1?
I move that we approve this.
Thank you. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, say no. Abstained?
I'll abstain on this one as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I suppose that the planning board doesn't need to join us for the rest of the meeting, but we have just a couple things to take up. First of all, item 39-22. All along for a couple of years plus, we have carried this item. This is me on behalf of the Zoning and Planning Committee requesting discussion on state guidance for implementing the housing choice element of the Massachusetts economic development legislation. We've carried it with us so that we keep an eye on it as we were working on the Village Center overlay. So something will need to be filed for next year, which will look differently from this, probably having to do with updates and status and so forth. But I'd love a motion of no action necessary on this item.
So moved. No action necessary.
Thank you, Councillor Danberg. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any abstentions or noes? All right, the item carries. Then we have a long list of reappointments, and where is Councillor Krinsman when you need him?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I'd like to vote on all of them at the same time because they're all reappointments.
I would love that. Is there any objection to proceeding in that manner? Seeing none, I will read them briefly into the record. 394-22, reappointment of Peter Vieira to the Chestnut Hill Historic District Commission. 395-23, reappointment of Lisa Adams to the Economic Development Commission. 396-23, reappointment of Florent Molly to the Economic Development Commission. 397-23, reappointment of Jen Griglum to the Economic Development Commission. 398-23, reappointment of Zach Knowlton to the Economic Development Commission. 399-23, reappointment of Mark Armstrong to the Newton Historical Commission. 400-23, reappointment of Ralph Abley to the Newtonville Historic District Commission. And 401-23, reappointment of Matthew Montgomery to the Chestnut Hill Historic District Commission. Do I have a motion?
Yeah, a motion to vote to approve all these reappointments.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. We have a motion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Excellent. We are done, and we are done for the year, and we are done for the term. Except that I think a lot of us are going to finance and public facilities right now.
Yes, but Councillor Crossley, I just would like to thank you for your able service as chair of the Zoning and Planning Committee, which was not an easy committee to chair for these last several years. I've enjoyed working with you on the committee very much, and I will miss your leadership.
Thank you, Councillor Leary.
I would also like to second that. Deb, thank you very much for all of the tremendous amount of hard work that you have put into not only this committee, but all of your work on the board. We have really accomplished a lot in this committee and under your chairmanship. And we're all very grateful for the work that you've done, and we will miss you.
I will miss you too.
I'll
All right.
I'll third that, but I'll say more tomorrow night, Wednesday night.
Oh, okay. Uh-oh. All right. Thanks, everyone. I'll see some of you in public facilities and finance in a few minutes. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.